huge thanks to KPMG for making this morning's conversation possible. And I'm very excited to welcome to the stage for a view from the top conversation from KPMG, their U.S. Deputy Chair and Managing Principal, Atif Zaim. Atif, welcome to Axios House.
Hello, Nick. How are you? Very good, thank you.
We were just talking backstage about the week you've had, coming up on 36 conversations with giant corporations and financial institutions. Give us a sense. What are they asking? What are you telling them? Like, what does that tell us about the state of things?
Well, Nick, first of all, thank you for having me. And it is the best part of my job, the ability to talk to senior executives at our clients, at our partners, at our suppliers. And unsurprisingly, the biggest topic this week and probably for the last year has been AI, as you can imagine. And the questions right now are about, hey, what is next for AI within my organization, as well as when might I see the return on investment in AI? And to be sure, everyone is very still gung-ho on investing. So we just had the CEO Outlook survey. 85% of CEOs want to continue investing. It's going to be their top priority. We've also had some of them, still a majority, that are saying even if there is a recession or economic headwinds, they're going to continue investing in it. So it kind of makes sense. We have a piece of research, Nick, coming out where we went back and studied organizations and how they behaved during the pandemic. So some of them pivoted really hard towards digital transformation. Others took a little bit of a more wait and see approach. So we went back and looked at the results and say, hey, what came of it? 4 times better. The outcomes for those who pivoted hard to digital. So it's not surprising the executives are saying, hey, listen.
The ones who leaned into that.
The ones who leaned into the digital transformation, and this is really no different. In terms of the current state of affairs, as to where we are, I think we're past that kind of first wave of, hey, let's bring the technology into the organization, allow our people to experiment with it, get some of the juices flowing, et cetera. That's the interesting part of that is in controlled environments, you're getting 20 to 30% efficiencies like when you're doing the experiments. But for some reason, it hasn't become pervasive enough or some other reason where you're not seeing that 20 to 30% increase in efficiency ratios, as an example, for financial institutions, at least not yet, right? Then it was taking it and embedding it in certain processes like software engineering, like customer service, et cetera. The next part is the most exciting, and that is taking agentic AI and reimagining entire workflows cross-functionally across different departments in the organization. So that's what we're really excited to watch.
This is the big hinge point here. Like last couple of years at Davos, it was just this unbridled enthusiasm about what AI can do. And I feel like this year is like, all right, well, let's prove it. So in the companies you talk to, how do you see like who gets it right, who gets it wrong? Like the ones that are figuring this out, what are the traits they share?
So I think the big difference that we're starting to see now, and I'll build on the point I was making last time, is how do you take a process and reimagine it completely? So instead of, some of the approaches have been, hey, listen, here's a process with 100 steps. Let's take 30 of these. These are most susceptible to AI enablement. Let's AI enable those and see what efficiencies we can get. And yes, for sure, you'll get efficiencies from that. What we're seeing now is take the process, take a team to the side. It's been our experience as well. We've done that, and most of us here are regulated, right? So you've got a lot of regulation and compliance and trust issues. What we've done is put them to the side and said, hey, let's relax some of those constraints for a minute and go reimagine how would you do this with AI, and Nick, the results have been outstanding.
Is that a little different than, as opposed to being process-oriented, being outcome-oriented? Don't take what you do and say, like, let's do what we already do with AI. Let's figure out what we're trying to achieve at the end of that, and then build from scratch.
That's exactly right. And if you do it that way, it does, I mean, I'll give you an example, right? So one of the thorniest issues in financial services, in fact, I was talking to a CFO of a large financial institution this morning, and I'll bring him in a minute, and in his example, the thorniest issue is you've got legacy infrastructure, right? These are systems that were built decades ago, and over the decades, they have tweaked them, improved them, modified them.
Bolted on.
And what's happened is they've gone through the entire organization. It's like tentacles, roots of a tree, and you don't know if you unplug them, what's going to break, right? And yes, theoretically it's possible to use humans to go figure all of that out, but it's been so difficult to do, most people have not done it. We have a solution called Blaze that uses agentic AI to go figure that out and then go and code it in a new modern technology platform. So back to the CFO that I was talking to this morning, he's doing that. And he said for the first time, so they again have a pretty big system that was coded in the 90s, whatever. And he goes, for the first time, Atif, in my history at this organization, IT has come to me and said, hey, we would be able to finish earlier, and it might be cheaper, and it may be better. First time in history.
Did that take a level of confidence on his part to like tear that down? Is that maybe the advice that you give folks when they come to you and say, like, we haven't really figured this out? It's like you have to be bold instead of incremental.
That's right. I mean, that brings to, if you look at the organizations that are going to be more successful than not, it's really going to come, to me, it's going to come down to three things. One of them is going to be that organizational culture. It is the confidence, it's the courage to fail fast, it's the experimentation, innovation, and all that sort of stuff. And I'll tell you, all of us grew up in a regulated environment, right? So it's not something that necessarily comes naturally to us, but it is a very important thing to do. Our workforces need to learn a lot of things, and they need to unlearn a lot of things. Two other things, I would say, one of the other is your ecosystem, right? There's so much good stuff happening in the technology ecosystem as well as outside. You need to find a way of plugging into that. Who is responsible within your organization to do that? That's very key. And the last one I would say is that link between the bottom up and the top down, right? So somebody invented a great way to do client statements as an example, right? If it's only that person, then the productivity gains are just limited. So what is your process to pick that up and institutionalize it so you can get that full ROI that can actually show up in your financial statements?
There's a big piece of the AI conversation, which is just the amount of money being invested. Yep. And from your vantage point, you probably see the capital flows better than anyone here. Are there trends you're picking up there that can explain like who is figuring this out and who's stuck in the legacy way of thinking?
So I would say, Nick, three categories for me. The first one is what gets written about the most, right? So this is the foundational models, the platforms, right? So this is whether it's the training of the model, the chips that do the calculations, the data centers that house it, the electricity that powers it, and the value chain keeps going, right, all the way down to the copper that's required for all of this, right? And so that investment continues apace. And what I'm hearing there is, hey, it is still scaling. So for more input into it, the models do keep getting progressively better, which is great. The middle part is quite interesting, which is these vertical AI companies. I was in Silicon Valley last week, met a number of them, and one of the first questions I had for each of the founders was, you say you're AI native, what makes your company AI native? And what they have said is, it actually reminded me a little bit of, if you go back to the late 2000s and ride-hailing and all that sort of stuff came across, yes, it was about broadband communication on your smartphone device, but it was also about GPS. It was also about the sufficient uptake of smartphones to make that business model possible. Same here. Yes, it's AI, but it's also cloud. It's also compute. It's also the new data technologies, et cetera, that together are making this possible.
Before we get the hook here, I'd love to spin this forward. Like if we're back on stage here in a year, back at Axios House in Davos, let's go back to that CFO you talked to from a financial services institution. A year from now, him or their competitors, what will they have figured out? Like who will have won the next year and who will still be talking about it?
So the one thing they will not be talking about is how many times a week, month, or day are there people using AI tools, right? That era has passed. So what they will be talking about is, hey, here's a key process in our organization that we have reinvented using agentic AI. So I'll give you an example. Fraud, AML, those sorts of things. Could you see a native AI stack, top to bottom, that's detecting the fraud, doing the investigation, gathering the evidence, preparing a draft of the SAR, suspicious activity report, and potentially filing it? You'll still have humans, obviously, making the judgment calls where necessary. You could have that. In the middle and back office, really expensive parts of organizations, that could be a big part of using agents to do reconciliations, client reporting, regulatory filings, all those sorts of things.
It's almost like the winners won't be talking about AI. It'll just be so built into their systems, while the rest of us will be saying like, oh, look, we used it 4 times. Like, no, we use it every... Like, you don't brag about how often you use the telephone.
Exactly.
You just use it.
That is exactly right.
Atif, that's a great note to end on. Thanks so much for being here today. Huge thanks to KPMG for making this possible.